in the before you write session. Oh yes, good call. Whenever so I start recording. Good for future use. As we're here in this kind of before you're writing section of the timeline, what you can start doing now before the application really opens. Even though it opens, today's July 31st, the Common Application opens tomorrow, August 1st, which is a wild thing to think about for students who are applying for fall 25. It's already here. But we'll talk about that, the stuff that you can do, and then choosing that topic, how you're going to write it, using your voice and personality and those tips. Let's dive in. So before you write, the most important thing is to really be honest with yourself and ask yourself some important questions, such as, am I a strong writer? Is this one of my strengths? And a good college essay doesn't only come from students who are strong writers. There are students who really struggle, say, in their English or their social studies courses to write a really persuasive essay or write a great short story, right? It's just not in your wheelhouse. It's not something you're good at. That's okay. But if that is you, and yes, I am a strong writer, right? Those are the things I love. I really look forward to written assignments where I get a chance to really use my voice and be creative. Really lean into that. And as you are putting together your essay, that's part of your personality, right? Those are your strengths, right? So don't be afraid to lean into the writing abilities that you have developed and be able to use the structures and the language, the grammatical and even sometimes literary devices that you know how to use well. You may be able to really lean into that and have that be part of the story that you're going to tell. But maybe that's not you, right? Maybe you're like, oh no, I'm dreading this. I hate when I have to write something in class. That's okay too. You can get help, right? And everyone should be using help, whether you are a strong writer or not. But as I mentioned just a minute ago, having someone look over your essay and say, does this make sense to you? Right? That's the basic question. Hey, here's this draft I'm working on. Does this make sense? Right? Or the other question I sometimes ask when doing an essay workshop, here's this essay. Can you read it? What did you think it was about? Right? What at the end of you finished reading my essay. What did you think it was about? What was your takeaway? And if it doesn't line up with what you want it to be about, what you hoped your essay would be about, that's a really good feedback for you to go back and change things up to get it where you want it to be. So whether you're a strong writer or not, right, you can use that revision process, use those resources, counselors, teachers, friends, family members, folks that you trust to really give you some real feedback and say, I don't know what you're trying to go for here. This is kind of rambly. Or, oh, yes, this is good. I know exactly what you're trying to say here. Use that feedback, get that help. But think on yourself honestly. Am I a strong writer? What should I do from there? A lot of students get caught up on what am I going to write about? Right? Okay, I'm a good writer or I'm not a good writer, but like I don't know what to write about. Like this is a college essay, right? You read over the prompts on the Common Application, say, and nothing's really popping in your head. It's like, oh, I definitely want to write about this topic for this prompt. So you can assess yourself and say, take a step back. Don't ignore the prompts for a second. I tell students a lot that if you're looking at a blank page and you're not sure what to write, start with your favorite thing. What are you passionate about? Right? Like, what is just your favorite thing? What is something that you can talk on and on about? Right? Is it, a video game you really love? Is it an artist, a musical performer you really respect and admire? Right? Is it your favorite? It could be your favorite subject in school. Is it a family member who means a lot to you? Like, just what is your favorite thing? If you're to meet a stranger and they're like, hey, what are you about? That can be a good place to start, right? It's a lot easier to write an essay about a topic you actually are passionate about and care about than it is to try to write something that you think the colleges are going to care about, right? We talked about your voice, your personality being a big piece. That can really come through in what you choose to write about. So, what do you care about? What are your passions? What are some emotions, good and bad, that you've experienced that you really feel strongly about, right? You had a big emotion about something. What is something you absolutely dislike, right? That can maybe be a more challenging essay to write, to not just turn in something that's a total flame venting, I hate this thing. But, if you care about something really passionately and you're like, I really don't like this thing, and here's why, that can be an essay topic. And on the inverse, here's the thing I really like and why, right? So going back to that passion piece. So you can take that time, really ask yourself, what do I want to write about? Am I a good writer? Get help regardless. But hopefully give you some ideas of just writing about your favorite thing can often be a really great way to start beating through that blank page syndrome and really starting to put some words down and give you a good place to start. and often leads to some really great essays that do indeed encounter student voice topics and stories that they really care about. So let's talk about some of those topics, right, and those stories that you really care about. There's lots of things that students choose to write about. I'm gonna put up some fairly common topics that we see and talk a little bit about some of the pros and cons about writing of each. So one of the things that students write about, not directly, but like is a zip code, aka where they're from, right? Where you live, the school you go to, the home that you live in, your day-to-day life, right? Obviously, that's what you do every day. So it's right there. It can be really easy to say, like, I look around and this is what I see. The thing with writing about where you're from, you really want to bring a little bit more than just observation to it, right? I've read college essays that are just saying, I wake up and here's what I do, and this is my family. I've got this many siblings, and we have a dog, and I live in this neighborhood, and I take the bus to school, and it takes this long, and then I go to school, and then after school I do this. I'm involved in these clubs, and I have this job that I do 3 days a week, and on the weekends, this is what my family does, and this is my life. Totally fine, perfectly fine essay, but often lacks a little bit of the so what, right? Of why are you choosing to just write about where you're from or what you do all day, right? Is there more that you're trying to say by sharing these details and these glimpses of your life that aren't being explicitly put down on page? So if you want to write about where you're from and what it is you do all day, always be thinking, why did I choose this detail? Right? Do you just sit down and say, here's my daily routine, and so I'm going to write it all down? Or are you thinking really intentionally about what to include and what to exclude because you're trying to convey to the college reader some important piece of your daily life, right? Why am I sharing this thing? Why am I talking about where I'm from? Why does that matter to me, right? Make sure that's in there. Make sure that's in that essay. Another thing you can really write about, a grandparent or a family member writ large. Read lots and lots of terrific essays about a family member who inspires you, right? A family member who made tremendous sacrifice to start a family here in the United States, say, to get the family that exists today where it is today. This all became, is because of this family member, this grandparent, or something like that. And that can be a really exciting and interesting essay topic. It can also sometimes just read as, here's this other person who's really great, right? So a lot of times students will say, like, my grandmother, she's such a personal hero of mine. The way that she sacrificed to come here and support her family, and she still makes the most amazing food on the weekends, and then brings us all together. And our home really is built around this relationship we have. That's terrific. Colleges aren't going to be admitting your grandmother, right, or your family member. They're looking at you. So similar to asking yourself, why am I writing about my hometown or my where I'm from? Why did you choose to write about this family member, right? The essay shouldn't just be, here's this person, here's all the great things that they did. Thank you, right? It really should be, here's this person. I really admire them, or they did this, and here's why it matters to me today. And here's why it matters when I'm thinking about my college experience, right? A lot of students fail to put themselves in the essay when they're writing about another person, right? So it's a really big thing to think about if you yourself are thinking about writing about a family member that you really adore. Other topics here, a pair of shoes, right? This goes back to that favorite thing, right? I love, these sneakers. They mean so much to me. This is how I started, my Instagram sneaker flipping page, right? This is how we trade. And when there's a new drop, like, it's so exciting, et cetera, et cetera. Replace shoes with any other kind of interest, hobby, passion, right? Again, the thing that you like to do outside of school. The danger with writing about that sort of thing is, again, it can just end up being all about that thing, right? Just this past year, I read a great essay about a student who did this, right? They loved their new sneakers, and they just described the sneakers and like how they were made and how the leather felt, and the importance, how the designers got there, and in this long line of releases, and how they couldn't wait to go when they dropped. They waited in line, the store and all this stuff. But there was, the student again wasn't there. It was, I learned so much about the sneaker and the history of the sneaker and all that stuff, but I didn't really hear from the student, why do you care about the sneaker? What does that mean to you? Right? Why are you choosing to share this piece of information about yourself in this essay? Right? So again, whatever your favorite thing is, always be mindful of putting yourself there at the center. You're going to hear me say that a lot because it's a big part of it. Another common topic that you hear a lot about, right? Oh, Dan just told me, think about a passion. Okay, I love being on my sports team. Think about an emotion. Okay, I had a sports injury and it was so devastating. That's a big emotion. Boom, perfect essay topic. And it can be. We write here and read a lot of essays about a sports injury, or not even a sports injury, but just a sporting match, right? A game. Right? It was the championship, or it was against the rival team. Everyone was counting on me. It was the big moment, right? My shot went in. I kicked the goal. I scored the touchdown, etc. Um, Again, a lot of students spend a lot of time writing details about the event and what happened. I have read so many times the sound of bones snapping and cartilage tearing and all this stuff. Like, I don't need to read all that, because what I really want to hear is what happened next, right? Again, why are you going to talk to me about tearing an ACL or scoring the big goal? Why are you putting that in your college essay, right? You've just told me a nice story, a nice little short story about a moment, but why does that matter to you? What did you learn from that moment? And something more, please, than just like, I am a great teammate. A lot of times I read, was part of the team and then I got injured and I had to learn to be a teammate from the bench. And that was really important to me. Um, I'm sure there's some deeper elements there, right, that you can apply to college, right? Why are you including this? What do you want the college person to learn about, getting injured? Don't just write the injury for injury's sake. Separate but related, and I didn't put it on here, but I was thinking about it. I was talking to my colleagues this morning. It can feel really tempting to, for lack of a better term, kind of trauma dump and use the college essay to talk about the worst thing that's ever happened to you. I think there is a social pressure or expectation or sense, whether it's from social media or even legacy media. I remember like watching TV shows when I was in high school, and they'd be like, "Oh, you got to write a heartbreaking college essay, right? That's how you're going to get into college." That is absolutely not the case. I tell students, and I'll tell you, if something really tragic has happened, you had to have overcome something really significant, and that is just such an inextricable part of your experience and your lived experience. By all means, you can include it as your college essay, right? You can make that the topic. But again, please don't make the entire essay just about that terrible thing or that hardship or that challenge that you had to overcome. I really do want to hear where you are now, right? And how it's gotten you where you are here today. Please do not use the college essay as an opportunity to talk about, here's this horrible thing that's happened to me. I haven't told anybody about it. It's like the worst thing, right? It's not a space really to do that. Every year, so as I mentioned, this is my 12th year in admissions. When I first started, these kinds of essays were fewer and far between, where students were really unpacking a traumatic experience. In recent years, more and more, we are reading students just talking about some really awful things that have happened to them, to the tune that my staff, we now go through mental health training to prepare ourselves for reading student essays, because there's going to be essays that are just really upsetting. And sometimes as a reader, it can be a really triggering thing to say like, hey, I had that same experience. And it's really a challenge to read about it from another student. And again, at the end of the day, is this essay conveying to me that you're ready for college? You're going to be really successful in college, right? Don't just put it all out there as a therapeutic, like, oh, I just got to write about the worst thing, because that's how I'm going to get into college. If they hear this horrible things happen to me, this challenge I overcame, they're surely going to admit me. And again, there's ways to write about it where you really are focusing on that future aspect of, with what I've learned going through this experience, I know that at your college, I'm going to be able to do XYZ. I'm going to be able to utilize support service XYZ. There's a way to do that, but I really tend to steer students away from a really negative essay and to really focus on something positive. I hope and maybe even am sure that there's another aspect of your life or your life story that you can talk about that is more positive, right? It is a moment of growth and not just a moment of sadness. So there's my piece on trauma dumping. I think I'll add that, but it was a big thing that came up with my staff this morning. I said, hey, I've got this essay workshop at noon. Anything else I should mention? And they said, those essays are sometimes really tough because there's no light, right? And there's no connection at the end of where you want to go in the future. And the last thing, we'll flip it up entirely, right? Your favorite singer, right? Another person that inspires you, similar to writing about a grandparent, writing about an artist or a musician or whomever that really inspires you that you don't know personally. That could be a really fun essay, so long, again, is not just all about why this person is so great, right? I read a lot of essays in the last couple of years about like, well, why Taylor Swift is just the best and why her songwriting is so good, or like how Beyonce is changing everything with mixing up genres with her latest album. Um, that's great. I'm so happy for them. I love them too, right? But they're not the ones applying to college, all right? You are. So same idea. If you're going to write about a person that you really admire that you don't know, make sure that you still maintain the center of that essay. I'm going to pause, one, so I can take a sip of water, but also any questions about any of that stuff. I mean, kind of talking at you for a couple of minutes here now. Okay. I am uh I am strengthened as ever and supported through your silence. We love it. Truly, I'm going to ask questions a couple times. So if you got ideas, especially when we get to the end, I'm all about it. But it's also totally fine if you don't have any questions. All right, let's move on. How you write. So I mentioned this as well, that how you write is going to be a big part of what how your application is going to be evaluated and judged. The story is one thing. The actual sentence structures and ways that you write is another. So we find you got to start somewhere, right? You have to have an intro. And I think it's important to think of the college essay as a way to try to connect with the reader fairly quickly. Um, Honestly, especially if you're applying to a larger public university, Towson, UMD, UMBC, Morgan, the other kind of bigger schools around the state, we read a lot of essays, right? And we're probably only going to spend a couple minutes on your essay, right? Some students will spend a lot of time on the essay. We'll really unpack and dig. But for the vast majority of students, we're just kind of read through it, maybe once, maybe twice, make some notes, move on. And so with that, there's a way that you can kind of start your essay in a way that's engaging. So there's a couple techniques in this. There's a literary technique called in media res, which basically means you start in the middle of something. So this is really good if you're talking about a moment or an experience that happened, right? You can kind of put the reader right in that place instead of saying last week, or last year, I had one of the biggest soccer games of my life. And instead, you can say, I could smell the grass. I put my foot on the ground. The soccer ball was in my hand. It was the big game, right? And again, as long as you are later on going to talk about the lesson learned and not just describe the entire match for me, it really is maybe a fun way to connect with the reader. You're going to want to use a lot of I and me statements. This is an essay about you. And so it's unusual to do that. So much of your school writing, you're really discouraged from bringing yourself to the essay, right? You're supposed to write a essay about something, a book, a historical event, whatever. So it's a little strange to start using I and me and we, but you can very much use that in your college essay, and you can use it to also draw in the reader by starting with, we do this. I spend every day doing this. When I think about when I can't sleep at night, I'm thinking about this. It's my thing. It's my favorite thing. Let me talk to you about it, and let me talk to you about why it's important that I share this story and why it's going to connect to what I'm really passionate about and want to do and succeed in with college, right? So once you get going with your essay here, you've got that path to follow there in the middle. And this is where you can release those additional details about your story, right? Hit me with the background on a family member. Hit me with the details and background you need to know about your favorite person, your inspirational singer or whomever. Feed me with some details of your neighborhood, right? But again, don't have it be the entire essay. This is also a really great place to start thinking about why you're including these details, right? Why do I want you, the college reader, the admissions counselor, to know about these things, right? And ultimately bring you to that conclusion, right? You should end. Your essay should have this ending point where you are really driving it home with the why I wrote about this topic, why it matters to college, right? Why it applies to what I see myself with my future and what I want to accomplish and what I want to do. Oftentimes I can tell when a student hasn't really spent a lot of time on their essay. Certainly you can tell when a student has written a lot of it on their phone because it really tends to lack a conclusion, right? It just kind of stops, right? A student is going along and saying, here's where I grew up, here's what my school is like, here's what I do. Not even a thank you, to this kind of, and here's what I do. Boom, right? There's no conclusion. There's no driving it home with that why, and there's no this is why I chose this essay topic. Having that intro, middle, conclusion structure can also help you if you're looking at a blank page in front of you, right? You can outline each part of your essay, right? And say, in my beginning, I want to write a couple sentences they're going to be like this. In my middle, I'm going to start bringing in some more details, and they're going to be these, not these, right? And always be asking yourself, why again? Why am I including these and excluding these details? And then I'm going to be bringing it home with that why, right? And sometimes I find students tell me that they start with the why at the end and work their way back up with their structure of how they do it. So definitely some tips there to really help you out with your essay writing. Some additional tips that I have. Yeah, be you, right? It seems very straightforward. I said earlier to use help. Absolutely. Don't have someone totally rewrite an essay for you. When you hand it off to someone, say, hey, do you mind looking this over? Don't just let them start typing and erasing everything that you did, right? Have them write their suggestions in red font, right? If you're going to use an old fashioned pen, have them write it in the margins, whatever. But if you're sharing a Google Doc with a friend, have them write comments, right? Add a comment instead of actually writing over it, right? You can kind of track the changes that they may be suggesting, as opposed to them just deleting what you wrote and redoing it for you, right? Be you. It is you. I said this earlier, but you want your essay at the end without a name attached to the top of it to be able to read like it was yours, right? And you can hand it to someone else and say, who do you think wrote this essay? And they'll say, you wrote it. You wrote it. You handed it to me. What are you talking about? And you say, no, no, no. If I didn't hand it to you, could you tell who wrote it? You can't do that if you have other people with so much input on the revision and editing process that they start to write it themselves. It's especially true if you start having an adult write it. It's hard to really say how but you really can tell when an adult has taken a pretty serious hand to a student's essay, whether that's a parent, family member, a teacher. Very rarely teachers like, no, don't write that essay for you. But a lot of well-meaning parents who are like, I can help you with this. I can help revise and edit it. By the time they're done with it, I'm like, this was written by an adult. They're using adult language and adult structures because they haven't had to write an assignment in 15, 20 years. And it really shows, right? They're used to just writing emails at work, and this reads like an email. So be you, right? A big, big piece of that. Don't lie. Don't use AI. That's a really big one too. Actually, let's talk about this a little bit. Using AI, using something, say, like Chat GPT, can be a really useful way to help you get started with an essay, especially. You can put a prompt in there and say, I'm writing my college essay. I want to write it about this, this, and this. Help me get started with that, right? And it will start spitting out some stuff for you. And in fact, if you really want to see how bland the stuff it can spit out to you can be, try writing your entire college essay using AI. See how boring it is. See how not detailed or specific to you it is. Even if you fit in a bunch of extra details in the prompts, right? Okay, good, but give me more. Give me more of this. Good, but put my favorite food is this. Good, but put that I play this position in the sport, right? Like by the time you're doing all that prompt writing, you just write the essay, right? Like it's going to spit something back to you that again is going to be really formulaic. It's going to be really structured. This fall, especially, we saw so many extremely common shared phrases, extremely common essay structure. And we're like, yeah, because this kid's using AI to help write it, right? And it makes the essay bland and it makes it go, blah, right? It takes what could potentially be a really good, engaging essay and just turn it into, a 2 out of 5, a 3 out of 5, right? And you just read lots of those and you're like, okay, it leaves no impression. And that's the downside of using technology to really build something out for you. So a tool for sure to maybe help you get some ideas going, get you some brainstorming action. But at the end of the day, don't copy and paste it your essay from somewhere else. Just start writing it yourself. You're gonna have such a more authentic essay when you do, and it allows you to do this next bit that much easier, which is writing something your audience is really gonna want to engage in, right? And doing it in a way that is pretty universal. I said this earlier when I was talking about like I don't need every single detail of the sports injury, or especially if you are going to talk about early traumatic event or something that's horrible has happened to you. I don't need all the specifics of what took place, what the experience was like. You can share the experience, but again, really specific, intimate details like that's personal and that's yours, and you're writing to strangers. And the broader you can be in your appeal there, the better, I think. There's something to be really said about the delightful details you can include. Things like the smell of the food cooking somewhere, right? Or the feeling that you had in your stomach, in your body as you aced that event, or you put on an amazing show, or you sang the song beautifully, or whatever you're going to write about. The feeling you got, the rewarding feeling you got as you were doing that service. But you don't need to get so bogged down in the minutia of here's what I did minute by minute, or here's exactly how this thing looked and felt. And then finding that balance comes from editing, and it comes from revising. It comes from having other people look over your essay, right? So I've said that a lot, and it's a big part of it. Another big takeaway that I absolutely was guilty of, and I'd like to say I'm no longer guilty of, but still to this day, sometimes do this a lot. Just don't procrastinate, right? It is July the 31st today, as we said. The common application becomes available tomorrow to be able to be sent to over 1,200 colleges and universities around the country and around the world, and many of the colleges here in the state of Maryland. In fact, I'm pretty sure every school in the state of Maryland accepts the Common App. I'm not saying you have to do this now. I'm not saying apply tomorrow. In fact, I would do not apply tomorrow. Give yourself time, right? I just said revise and edit, have other people look over your essay, but don't leave it till October 15th. Don't leave it to November 10th, right? If the deadline is November 15th for your colleges. Start working on it now while you have these last weeks of summer to really start working on your rough drafts. We were chatting a little bit about this at the beginning before the session began. It's hard to find time, right, to even do something like an essay workshop, because try to do it during the school year when students are maybe a little bit more engaged with the college process. Y'all are gonna be so busy, especially at the beginning of the school year, right? You have a new class schedule to figure out. You got all this homework that's suddenly piled up. You have these club meetings, you got sports practice, you got jobs, all this stuff. Hard to find time, right, to really set aside and work on your college essays. Better to start doing this stuff now in the next month, at the very least, to give yourself a really solid draft, than to wait another month. I'll get to it. I'm not in the mood right now. I'm not in the mindset right now. And then find yourself stressing, pressing, doing it in the middle of the night because you had so much stuff to do all day long. You're going to produce a weaker essay as a result. And you're going to be more stressed out about this college application process as a result. So easier said than done, but just don't procrastinate. Again, the fact that y'all are here is big. I think that really, again, speaks to the fact that you don't want to be procrastinating. You really do want to start working on your stuff now. And the more work you can do now, the more thankful you will be later. All right, folks. Oh, I had a question slide. Where did my question slide go? It's supposed to be a question slide. Oh, you know what? I accidentally hid the slide. How about that? Unhide slide. Question slide. Questions? Things you all want to know. Again, I told you, I warned you. Some would say even threatened you with the idea that you'd have to ask me a question before we were done here. Anything you want to know, put it in the chat, say it out loud. What you got?
What has been the most interesting essay you have read?
That's a great question. I have a couple that I've read over the course of my life. Yeah, the one I tend to fall back on, it was actually about a pretty mundane topic. It was a student who wrote about their favorite place to eat, their favorite local restaurant. And it wasn't just like, here's the food. Oh my God, it's so good. The mozzarella sticks are out of control. It's been here a long time. It's a family run business and we like going there. Thank you. What made it such a standout essay for me was they tied going to this place with their family when they were younger, their friends now in high school. They, without getting too deep into the details, hit me with like, this happened here. We celebrated this family moment here. We mourned this family moment here. My friends and I, talked about our crushes here. We celebrated, a successful theater production here. This place has a lot of meaning to me. And then they didn't leave it at that, right? Because again, I would be like, oh, that sounds like a really nice place. I'd love to go eat there. They then finished by saying, and I'm leaving this place, right? I'm going to go to college and I won't be able to come here every Friday anymore. But I look forward, I'm looking forward to establishing new places of meaning, right? And I know that I'm going to be able to find that because that's something that I do as a person. I go out and find these important places and I gather my friends and my community around it. And so that one has really stuck out because it was clearly honest. Like it was just, here's my favorite place I like to eat. And here's all the important stuff that's happened here. But I really appreciated that it kicked with this, I want to tell you why I'm talking about all this stuff. And it's because I know I'm going to do that with you, with college, or this new home that I'm going into. And so it kind of got a little reflective and a little meta as they thought about creating these new spaces in their new home whenever they get to college. So a fun essay, a good one. Good question. What else? Okay, very good. I mean, we got a small group, right? So it's not no problem to not have a million questions. I dazzled you with information. You're speechless because of how much I just conveyed to you. And I talked at you straight for 20 minutes. I'll drop this in the chat here as well. Like this is, my contact. I'm Dan. I work at Towson University. I'm happy to talk to you about Towson University. I'm happy to talk to you about anything about college process, right? You have a lot of terrific counselors and supports. Certainly, the folks working with you here, you know, they're here to see you succeed and get through college and get to college and get through college. And we are too, right? Myself, my whole team, any college admissions officer you talk to, we are happy to answer questions. Certainly about our schools, right? That is our day job, right? To tell you why Towson's a great place, why you should consider it, et cetera, but also just to encourage you on the college process. So you can always reach out and let me know if you got questions, and I'll be happy to help from my end. But use the folks in front of you here as well, and the folks who will be in front of you once the school year starts here this fall. But that's it. That's what I got, folks. Stop that screen share. Bring back a full-sized Dan window here in your Zoom window. Anything else? I saw we dropped the attendance piece there, a sentence. So yeah, you can mark that you were here. That would be lovely. If you do want to know anything about Towson, again, shoot me an email. I'm happy to connect. But otherwise, it was great spending some time with y'all. Go eat some great lunch. Go to your favorite place, wherever that place is. It might be just your kitchen, but it's a good place too. Cool.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Thank you all. It was a delight. We'll continue to be in touch. We work all throughout the year on programs like this. But thank you, students, especially for coming to join.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a really excellent presentation. I really liked how you broke it down for students. Yeah,
thank you. Been doing it for a little while. Been working on this PowerPoint
really
started a long time ago.
I really liked it.
Thank you. So. But yeah, have a great rest of your day, everybody. Great rest of your summer.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
Be good.
Bye.
Bye-bye.